Doctrines of Ages of the World. With the concept of the Anthropocene, contemporary geology once again adopts the 19th century epistemological habit of historicising anything and everything, and of organising all historical fields into eons, ages, or epochs. The triumph of historicism is primarily fuelled by the idea of evolution, which is taken to refer to all areas of reality, from minerals up to the large composite bodies that are known as human quote-unquote societies. Marx and Engels, in harmony with the spirit of their age, could thus claim, quote, "We know only one science, the science of history," end quote. In their eyes, human history represented a special case of natural history, insofar as the human being per se is the animal that has to secure its own existence through production. Consequently, the history of the quote-unquote relations of production would be nothing more than the continuation of natural history in another register. Human meta-naturalism would merely be natural history that was technologically alienated. What we call the human being's inner quote-unquote nature would be what Spinoza called the impulse, conatus, to self-preservation at any price, which marks all life with the form of forward flight. For a time, the Marxist image of the world popularised the saga of the relations of production, along with their great stages of the hunter and gatherer era, through to slave-holding societies, feudalism, capitalism, and all the way to quote-unquote communism. This myth had the great merit of replacing ancient doctrines of the ages of the world, or eons, which descend from the Golden to the Iron Age, as well as the doctrine of world empire found in the book of Daniel in the Bible, with a pragmatic theory of epochs. According to this theory, the ages of the world are distinguished from each other by the manner in which human beings are organised, their quote-unquote metabolism with nature. The concept of the Anthropocene logically belongs to the group of pragmatic theories of the ages of the world. It posits a state of telluric metabolism in which the emissions caused by human beings have begun to influence the course of the Earth's history. The concept of emission helps us to recognise that the kind of influence we are concerned with here has until now taken place in the mode of a side effect. Otherwise, we would be talking about a quote-unquote mission or a quote-unquote project. The E in emission reveals the involuntary character of the anthropogenic impact on the exo-human dimension. Thus, the concept of the Anthropocene includes nothing less than the task of testing out whether the agency of quote-unquote humanity is capable of transforming something ejected into a project, or of transforming an emission into a mission. Anyone who speaks of an Anthropocene thus appeals to a still scarcely existent, quote-unquote, critique of narrative reason. Since effective histories can only be organised from their endpoints backwards, the Anthropocenic standpoint amounts to a narrative with a stark moral choice. In the narrative culture of the West, this position was formerly reserved exclusively for apocalyptic literature. Apocalypticism is the attempt to evaluate the world from its end. It implies a cosmic moral procedure of sorting, in which good is separated from evil. To separate good from evil simply means to extract what is worthy of survival from what is not worthy of survival. What one calls eternal life is an intensified metaphysical term for being allowed to carry on, whereas eternal damnation signifies that a specific modus vivendi has no future and is to be removed from the series of forms of existence worthy of being passed down. Everything thus suggests conceiving of the Anthropocene as a term that is only meaningful within the framework of an apocalyptic logic. Apocalypticism signifies evidence from the end, since, as a collective, we cannot be all the way at the end yet, but always have to somehow carry on for a while longer. Human intelligence cannot definitively review its own history. It can only try different versions out in diverse forms of anticipation, a fact that is testified to by an illustrious series of simulations sacred and profane, from the Egyptian Book of the Dead to the first report of the Club of Rome. Current human involvement in natural history shows that Heidegger's original insight of conceiving being as time was fundamentally correct. This intuition was admittedly missing an essential element, namely that time first becomes noticeable as time when its uniform flow is disrupted. This disruption, which the ancients were the first to perceive, was the delay. It constitutes one of the basic forms of tragedy. Even contemporary humanity is menaced by delays, particularly when it comes to taking measures regarding quote-unquote environmental policy. Yet time as such generally becomes noticeable for modern humans through accelerations. Accelerating as fast as possible in one's trajectory is what drives apocalypse as a temporological form. Heidegger derived the thought of, quote, running ahead to one's own death, end quote, from such acceleration, by accepting an existentialist abbreviation for anticipating the end. In his time, the authentic task of thought already consisted in investigating why modernity, for imminent reasons, is inclined to anticipate a total end. This required an examination of the motif of universal process acceleration, which imposed the form of absolute progress on modernity's modus vivendi.